evening.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Elisa and everyone.
Hello.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening. How's everyone tonight?
Good.
Fine. Yeah.
That's good. Okay, so today we are going to look at creating a needs assessment. So the objectives for today's class or session is that participants will be able to create elements of a needs assessment to learn specific information about their students. So some community guidelines to start off with. We are happy you are here. If you are late or have technical issues, that is okay, and you can just join in the conversation as you are able to. I do realize sometimes people cut out in and out. Mute yourself when you are not talking, but please remember to unmute yourself when you do want to talk. We want to be able to hear everyone. Please complete the pre-session interactive self-paced slides. They're posted on our Facebook page or Facebook group. They're posted on our LinkedIn. They're in our Google Classroom, and they're sent out as a link in the email. So lots of places. Oops, sorry, I meant to let someone in and I accidentally left the, and also please complete the feedback form after the class so that I can get people's feedback and then we can adjust and adapt as we go. This will help us out. If you have questions or technical issues during the session, please send a message in the chat box if you'd like, or you can send an email. Okay, so I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Lisa Vance. I have previously taught English. I have taught environmental education, and I have done some teacher training before. And as I think most people know, I was previously in Myanmar, although I am currently back in Canada. My co-host is Kathleen. She makes all of the slides or the slide deck. Kathleen, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Kathleen Grivey. Like Lisa said, I help develop the slides for these trainings each week. I'm currently located in the US, and I'm an English and Spanish teacher here, but I also have experience doing teacher training in Mexico and teaching English online.
And To is joining us this week. He might be doing the classes next week in Burmese. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Okay. Hello, nice to meet you all. Minglava. I'm Tutunai. I will be conducting this teacher training next week in Myanmar language. And but the training design and the training programs are from the Lisa's programmer. But I will translate it and I will conduct it in Myanmar language. Nice to meet you all. Thank you.
Awesome. So we will be having it in Burmese at 10:30 a.m. in the morning and in English at 8:30 p.m. at night next Saturday. Okay. So how well can you create a needs assessment? So just based on your previous experience, how well do you feel you can create a needs assessment? Not at all, little bit, somewhat, quite well, or extremely well. So can you please turn on your cameras? And on the count of 3, show me. If you can't turn on your cameras, you can put it in the chat box. So 1, 2, 3. So how well can you create a needs assessment? Okay, lots of people kind of in the middle. Okay, let me look at the chat box. Ah. Oh, I'm having some issues. Sometimes I notice if I have it all the way open, it doesn't let me look at the chat box. Let me just fix this. Okay, a little bit, thumbs up, a 2, I see. A little bit, Yes, okay, good. I'll go back to sharing. Just happens sometimes. Okay, excellent. So have you ever done a needs assessment for your class? Can you either tell me or you can type in the chat box. So have you ever done one for a class? Yes, no, when, how? There we go. My chat box is working again. Yes, no, I have never done. No. People who have done one, when or how? Can you tell me a little bit about when you did it?
When I give a lecture to my students, after that I made a quick test. If they understand the question, understand the lesson, and then I will ask who didn't understand the lesson of what I teach. After my class, I ask like that, and please hand. They are by hanging sign.
Okay, yeah. So
I do most often.
Okay, good. Yeah,
Because
so
I have got this habit. I have got this habit from one trainee of Indonesia's quality assurance trainee. I have got, and then after that I make like that.
good. Yeah. So, and I will be clear, like needs assessment is a pretty general term. It's used in a lot of areas. It just means to assess people's needs. And so for this class, we're more going to look at kind of different ways that you can do that. So what is a needs assessment? Can anyone tell me what is it? I think someone wrote it in the chat box. So asking their knowledge about the lesson at the first class. Yeah. So it's a pretty open definition. It's pretty broad. Yeah, how effective or how understanding. Yeah. Usually it's done before. So usually it's done before you might start a program or you might start a class, like a course, or before an individual class. So usually it's kind of at the beginning to check understanding or to gather information before you teach the students. Yeah, so it's collecting data about students' needs to check their prior knowledge. Yeah. So a pre-test might check their prior knowledge, but a pre-test might be part of a needs assessment. So a needs assessment is more general. How do you check their knowledge? Usually, like, yeah, beforehand. So it gathers information about the students. So maybe their demographic, their disabilities or special needs, prior knowledge, motivations, that type of thing. So it's done at the beginning of the year to help guide planning. It could be done at the beginning of a program, or you could even say at the beginning of a class if you wanted. It depends how you're implementing it, but kind of at the beginning of something. So an example, just to quickly show you, I might have to stop. Say when I sent out the application forms, that could almost be seen. Let's see if I can find it. So I sent out these application forms. This could almost be seen as a very, very, very simple needs assessment. Very basic. But, you know, I'm asking your name, I'm asking where are you from, what university do you work at, what subject do you teach, why are you interested in joining this training, so your motivation, how would you rate your ability to create a needs assessment? So I'm asking your, just one second, your prior knowledge, that was the word that was used. So I was asking your prior knowledge. So this could be seen as a very, very, very basic needs assessment, and you could make this on Google Docs. But again, this is just for one class, and a lot of times you might do it for a whole course or a whole program. Okay. Can you see my slides again, or do I need to? Okay, good. Sometimes I notice if you switch, you can't see the slides. You have to stop sharing and share again. Okay, why is a needs assessment useful? So you can either type in the chat box or you can tell me.
It's useful to evaluate someone's performance or detect someone's actions.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, definitely. Like, say the reason that I get you to fill in the application form is I want to know how much information you already know on the topic. I want to know where you're from. I want to know why you're attending this workshop, you know, and that's all information that's very useful to me. So to understand the students well, to know or check their understanding, to help us how to prepare and how to teach the lesson. Yep. To help teachers to understand their students. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And know
So,
the level of the students.
yes,
And know the
definitely.
level of the students. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, to know the level of the student is definitely true.
If you know their level, we can handle how we go on.
Oh, it's hard to hear.
Plan and how we trying to do. I'm trying to teach them.
Yeah, definitely. Like if you know their level, you can adjust to it. Okay. So yeah, it helps the teachers understand the students better. It helps you create lessons, activities for those specific students. If you know what they like, then it's easier to create activities for that. You might learn about potential challenges. Where do the students struggle? You can prepare better lessons and you can improve student learning outcomes. Okay. So we've been doing this module on assessing assessing learners. So what topics that we have already covered are part of assessing needs. So previous classes that we have done, what are they? What did we do last week or the week before that relates to assessing needs? What topics have we covered? Pre-tests, yes, yeah. Yeah, asking questions to the topic, yeah, pre-test, diversity, student disability, yes.
Like surveys for feedbacks.
Yeah, we talked, yeah, I think we talked about learning styles and surveys and things like that. Yeah, anything else that we've previously done? So here we're talking more about the content. So we've covered multiple intelligences, we've covered learning styles, we've covered diversity, we've covered disabilities, we've covered gender, we've covered LGBT plus issues, we've covered strengths, we covered motivation, we've covered physical constraints and prior knowledge as part of the pre-tests. So these are all topics that we have already covered, and these are all topics that you can include as part of your needs assessment. And how can you collect data for a needs assessment? This is more of what a few people have already mentioned. So how do you collect the data? Yes, surveys, tests, discussions, pre-tests. How else?
Interviews. Yes.
Interviews, yes. Yes. Surveys, yes.
Some kind of quizzes.
Yeah, quizzes. Discussion, yes. Observation, yes. Making a survey, yes. Yes, so there's many different ways that you can collect data, but we're going to look at 5 different ways today briefly. So this is just briefly. Oh, an assignment. Assignment's a good way. We don't have that one listed. You can give them a short assignment to collect their information, to collect information from them. Like a written assignment about themselves or a video or something like that. Or just a homework assignment to check knowledge. So today we're going to look at pre-tests, student surveys, student observations, discussions, and observations. But like I said, there are many more. Okay, so very basic image, but which data collection tool do you think this shows, and how could you use it, or what could you use it for? So which one do you think this is out of the 5?
Checklist.
Yeah.
No.
So this is, yeah, student surveys.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is for collecting student surveys. So a student survey, you can collect demographics. Where are people from? How old are they? Are they a boy? Are they a girl? That type of information. You can also collect information on diversity. Are they from an ethnic group? What language do they speak? That type of thing. Disabilities. You could ask if people have learning disabilities, or if they have cognitive disabilities, or if they have physical disabilities. Gender, so I kind of put that under demographics, but it could be separate, sorry. So yeah, are they a boy? Are they a girl? That type of thing. LGBT plus identity. This one you might be a bit cautious with, but some people ask that information. So do you identify as part of LGBT plus, yes or no? But you have to be a bit cautious because some people don't want to share that information. So yeah, there's lots of different questions you can ask. Maybe also about motivation. You could have like, what motivates you, and have them check a box. Okay. So what do you think this image shows? Which of the 5?
Discussion.
Yes. And how can you use a discussion as part of a needs assessment?
To make peer assessment.
Yeah. So
Communication.
yeah, communication. Yeah, so you could have a meeting with a group of people. Maybe you get your class together, you have a group discussion. You could discuss maybe about what motivates people in your class. What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? What are their learning styles or their learning preferences? What intelligence do they identify with the most? What kind of, yeah, so it's kind of knowledge sharing, but about help you learn more about the student. You could also maybe do demographics here if you want to know a little bit about the students. So you can have a discussion. Okay, what do you think this image shows? Which of the 5?
Interview.
Interview, yeah, definitely. And how can you use an interview
Today.
as a needs assessment?
Through interview, we can know our students better.
Yeah, so yeah, you can get to know your students. Sometimes a group discussion is nice, but sometimes you want to talk one-to-one with a student and really get to know them really well.
It's debate.
So yeah, you might ask them about their strengths and their weaknesses, their motivation for joining the class, their prior knowledge, their learning styles, their multiple intelligence is maybe their demographics, you could also maybe talk about if they have a disability or something like that. So there's lots of topics that you can discuss as part of an interview. Okay. How about this one? Which of the 5 do you think that this is?
Pretest.
Pretest, yes. And how can you use a pretest as a needs assessment?
Yeah, to know my students' strengths and weakness and their levels.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, it helps you figure out your students' prior knowledge. So what do they already know? And what are their strengths and what are their weaknesses? So then you can helps you adapt. So you can do a pretest to help with that. And you can have a little bit of a pretest maybe as part of a longer survey or something. You can mix and match these together. Maybe you'll do a pretest and discussion. Like you can choose more than one method. It doesn't have to only be one method. It's up to you. Okay. Which data collection method is this, do you think? Out of the 5?
Maybe observation.
Yes. Yeah, this one was harder to show. Yeah, so this is observations. So yeah, observations, you can learn a lot by observing. Maybe you learn about their prior knowledge, like you can, if you're going around during the first week of school or something, and you can observe your students, what are they doing well at? What do they seem to find easy? What do they seem to find difficult? Are there any physical constraints? Do they if they can't move their chair or their desk, that might be a physical constraint that they have. Diversity, maybe just from listening and talking to people, you figure out, and observing them talking, you figure out that people are from different ethnic groups or speak different languages. Maybe from observing, you find out if someone has a disability or not. And maybe, you just figure out their strengths and weaknesses from observing how they maybe work with other classmates or how easy they seem to find assignments. And you can make notes about each of the students just based on your observations. And maybe also learning styles or learning preferences. What kind of activities do they seem to like? Which activities do they not like? So that's how you can use observations. Okay. So you will see an example of some information a professor wants to learn about their students. Click the data collection method. I'll change it to methods you would use to learn that information. So you can click more than one answer. You can click 1 answer, 2 answers, 3 answers, 4 answers, 5 answers, whatever you feel like, as many answers as you think is correct. And we can talk about it. Okay. So prior knowledge, if you're collecting and figuring out prior knowledge, which ones would you use? Pretest, student surveys, student interviews, discussion, or observations. And like I said, you can choose more than one answer. That's okay. I think I made it so you can choose more than one. It's supposed to. Okay, I'll wait 10 more seconds for people to answer. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Stop there. Okay. So most people chose pretest. I think that's the most obvious way to collect prior knowledge. It's the most common. Student surveys, I mean, you might have kind of a pre-test as part of it, or you might have them self-rate. Like in the applications I give out, how do you self-rate your knowledge? So you can have it part of a survey. I've done it part of a survey. Student interviews, good. You might ask them some questions about their prior knowledge. Discussions, yeah, you might have discussions about a topic to figure out prior knowledge. And yeah, you might also do observations to observe what they're talking about and with their classmates. That one's a little bit harder with prior knowledge, but it might still be possible. But pre-tests are definitely the easiest. Okay, next one. LGBT plus identity. So how could you maybe figure that out? What would you add? What would you use? Five, four, three, two, one. Stop there. Yeah, so yeah, you probably would not use a pretest. That wouldn't make sense. Maybe a student survey, maybe a student interview. So you might ask them directly, like, do you identify as LGBT plus? Again, you might have to be a bit careful because some people don't want to reveal it. Discussion, possibly. You might have to be very, very careful with that because people might not want to reveal it to other students. So you might have to be careful about that one, but it is possible. Observations might also be possible. You don't want to stereotype people, but maybe if there's someone that is traditionally like their sex is a man, but they always dress very feminine and they like to wear makeup and that type of thing, then you might be able to tell that they might be transgendered or something like that. So it is possible that you might be able to observe. You don't want to make any definite opinions because you might be wrong, but you might be able to notice. Or if they're talking to their friends, maybe you can tell from what they say if they're LGBT or not from observing them with their friends. Okay. Next one, strengths. So what are the students' strengths? So which ones? I'll give you 1 minute to answer. Okay, 5 more seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. So yes, student interviews, maybe you might ask them, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? A pretest, yeah, it might show you what are they good at? Which sections were they very, very, very good at? Which ones were they not as good at? Student survey, again, you might ask, how would you rate yourself on these skills? Maybe you'll have a discussion. What do you think are your strengths? What do you think are your weaknesses? Maybe you'll observe them. And again, you can use these in combination. Maybe maybe you'll do an interview and a survey at this. So maybe you'll use 2, or maybe you'll do a pretest and then you'll have a discussion. So it doesn't just have to be one. You can use multiple ways to collect information. Hey, motivation. Oh, I accidentally closed it. How could you find out the motivation of your students? Okay, so we'll stop there. So some people said discussion. That's true. You might have a discussion and ask your whole class, like what motivates you, what doesn't. Maybe student interviews. You can ask them questions about what motivates them. Why are they interested in this class? Why are they not? Maybe observe them. Observation of motivations might be a little bit harder, but maybe you could see what makes them really happy. That might be motivation. Pre-tests, I would say not as much. Pre-tests wouldn't really tell you about motivation. Pre-tests are more about knowledge and skill. Disability. So which ones could tell you about disability and if your students have disabilities? And that can be any kind of disability, like a learning disability, a physical disability, a cognitive disability. Five, four, three, two, one. Oh, there's a chat. So yeah, maybe observations you could observe, especially physical disabilities, you can probably observe. You might not be able to see cognitive disabilities, but some learning disabilities, you might see that they're struggling a bit in class. Maybe they're just struggling to learn or something like that. So you might be able to tell a little bit, but maybe not exactly what it is. Maybe from a discussion. Maybe a discussion that would be, you'd have to be a bit careful with a discussion because maybe people don't want to share with other students their disabilities. So you do want to be a bit careful with that. Student interviews, yeah, you could definitely, I think, ask. You'd have to be a little careful with how you ask that, but it might be something to bring up or mention. Student surveys would be a good way. Pre-tests, I would say not as much. Pre-tests, again, are more about knowledge that the students have and less so about how the student is. Oh, sorry, I didn't share there's the results. Okay, learning styles. So learning styles or learning preferences. So pre-tests, student surveys, student interviews, discussions, or observations. So how do they like to learn? Do they like kinesthetic or like touch, or do they like audio, or do they like audio visual, or do they like reading and writing? Now I can't remember what the learning styles are. I should know this. We went over it, but what are their learning preferences? Maybe discussion, yeah. Okay, 3, 2, 1. So observations, yeah, I mean, here, I'll share the results. Observations, yeah, maybe you could observe what do they like doing? What do they not like doing? What do they seem to find fun? Where are they like motivated and focused? What kinds of activities? Discussions, yeah, you could have a discussion like, what do you like learning about? I mean, how do you like learning? Do you like watching videos? Do you like reading about it? What do you prefer? How do you prefer to learn information? Student interviews. Again, you could ask them one-to-one. How do you prefer to learn? What activities do you like? Student survey, you could have like a check mark and they could check off all the ones they like. Pre-tests, again, not so much. Pre-tests are more about knowledge and less about what the students prefer. Yeah. So yeah, it is important to adjust your learning styles to match the students. So figure out how they like to learn and then match how you teach to how your students will best learn or best prefer to learn. Okay. Multiple intelligences. Is that pre-tests, student surveys, student interviews, discussions, or observations? What would you use? Yeah, 5, 3, 2, sorry, there we go. Yeah, so multiple intelligences, you might do an interview. The easiest way for multiple intelligences, because it's a set way, kind of like learning styles, is you can do a survey with them. So multiple intelligences, you could get them to fill in the actual survey to indicate what their intelligence is. Maybe then you could discuss about it. So you can have a discussion about it. You could do a discussion about their preferences or what they got on the survey. You could also observe them and see what intelligences they seem to use the most. So if there's someone that seems very active and likes being active, then you might know that. If there's someone who's very studious and likes math questions, then you know kind of what kind of intelligence they are. Okay, and maybe, yeah, student interview. I think. So physical constraints. So does your student have any physical constraints? And remember when we're talking about this, like we were talking more about COVID-19 or not enough finances or, you know, like in the classroom. So this could be something like maybe they're struggling with money at home, or maybe they're dealing with COVID-19 right now. So a lot of people, a lot of students are more stressed out because of COVID-19. So those kind of possible constraints, what could you use to find them? So pre-tests, student surveys, student interviews, discussions, or observations. This is the last one. Two, one. Maybe observation. So which way are they physically struggling? Maybe if the desks cannot move, then you can observe that. Like if all the desks are stuck down, you're like, oh, that's a constraint. You can observe that. What else is there? Student surveys. Yeah, you might also ask questions like, have you been impacted by COVID-19? Something like that. What kind of constraints? Are you struggling financially? Things like that. You can ask on a survey. You can do the same with a student interview or with a student discussion. Again, with a discussion, you might have to be careful because people may not want to share all information with everyone. So you have to think about privacy and if some people might want to stay private about certain topics because it might be sensitive. Yeah. Oops. So in groups, you will create your own survey, pretest, interview, discussion, observation questions on Pear Deck. If you have questions or technical difficulties, you can send us an email, or I think there's a help button once you're inside. Just to kind of show you what I mean, I'll quickly do an example. We don't have a lot of time. Not that one, this one. Okay. So we have the list of possible topics. So choose a topic. So it's a pretest. So maybe you would say, oops, prior knowledge. So you're going to collect prior knowledge. So what is a question that you could ask to collect prior knowledge? Can someone give me an example? Type it in the chat box, maybe. How could you, what is a question you could ask on a pretest? Anything. You can make it up. It doesn't matter. Like you could say, what is 1 + 1? Obviously, it'd be more difficult than that. Does anyone else have any questions you could ask on a pretest? Anything. Have you ever been to Paris? Yeah, maybe. That I don't know if that's really prior knowledge. Maybe What do you know about Paris? What is the commercial city of Myanmar? Yes. What is the commercial city of Myanmar? So you only have to come up with one question for each. But here it's a student survey. Choose a topic, and then you can write one question if you want. If you want to do more, you can do more, but we don't have a lot of time. So this is a student interview. Choose a topic. What question could you ask the student? A discussion. What question could you ask to discuss in a group of students? An observation. This might be a bit more difficult, but what could you observe? Maybe not a question, but like, let's say, disability. So how could you observe a disability? Yeah, it's up to the topic you are going to teach. So this is just brainstorming. So how could you observe for a disability? So maybe so what are the advantages of using modern technology? That would be more a pretest. So this with disability would be like, is the student wearing a hearing aid, like a hearing thing to help them hear? You can see that or observe that. Yeah, are they having difficulties with learning this subject? So it might show if they have a learning disability or not, if they're having a lot of difficulties. Okay, so we don't have a lot of time, so I'm just going to give you 10 minutes to work on this in groups. So we'll go slightly over for time. So I'm adding the link to Pear Deck in the chat box, and I will put you in groups. 17, 16, 15. We'll do 3 groups. And it's for 10 minutes. So you can work together to answer the questions. Kathleen, there you are.
"2020 was different, to say the least. We had virtual dance parties."
Cũng lên đấy uống mì à này
So if one of you wants to share your screen, and then if you click on the link and then share the screen.
Yes, we have difficulties to show, to do share screen. Yes.
Oh, okay. Do you know?
Okay, I'm going to share the screen.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, awesome. So yeah, just see if you can answer one question per type. So per method, just one question.
Yeah. Okay, xem alo vô à.
About the topic. How do you understand about the topic?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cảm ơn rồi đi ta con này xem mà chúng feature sự sự không bị khai trở về hay feature về gì mà được nó.
Does someone want to share your screen, or do you just want to discuss about it?
Yes, teacher, my internet connection is so poor, so it is not okay for me to share the screen. And the other ones find out that it is their first time.
Fine.
Some don't know how to share
Oh, okay. I mean,
so we just we just discussing about the topic. Now we can.
Okay.
Someone is yeah.
Okay, that works. Yeah, you can, if you want to just talk about it, that's fine. As long as you're working together and discussing it and helping each other. So, okay.
Yes, teacher.
know we're a little bit rushed for time, so if you need to do it for homework, if you want to practice for homework, you can practice it for homework. And you can also practice the activity, the self-paced activity that I sent out. Couple of comments. A pretest, remember, is usually mostly about knowledge. So what's your native language would be more a survey question than a pretest. A pretest is more like you could ask, I don't know, what tense is used in this sentence, and then write out a sentence in English. Or yeah, it's a pretest is more about facts, while which language are you interested in at present, or what's your native language, would probably be more a survey than a pretest. But yeah, we're kind of out of time, so we're going to stop there. So how well can you create a needs assessment? Not at all, a little bit, somewhat, quite well, or extremely well. So you can either please turn on your camera. If you can't turn on your camera, you can type it in the chat box. So on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Cool. And I'll just check the chat box now. 3, somewhat, 4, 4. Yeah, quite well. Yeah, we did go through it very quickly, and I do understand that. So it's a lot of information. So thank you very much. We will be emailing out the course feedback form, as well as the invitation to join the Google Classroom. All of our slides and video recordings of all the classes are kept in the Google Classroom. Next week's topic, we're going to be looking at learner and class profiles. So all the information you have gathered from your needs assessment, how can you record that information about your students? The Google Classroom also has a copy of the syllabus that we will be covering in each of the classes or topics each week. And I will send the feedback form right now in the chat box as well. So I'll send it now and over email. You only have to fill it in once. And these are our resources. We used Mo'u's stuff as well. So we added them in. Feedback. There you go. There's the link to the feedback. Like I said, I'll also be emailing it out. Okay, thank you very much and have a nice night. I will be staying for a few more minutes if you have any questions. So, bye-bye.
Thank you, Lisa. Have a nice you too. Yes.
See you. Have a nice evening.
Yeah. Have a nice time. Bye.
Anyone have any questions? Make sure to unmute yourself if you do have questions. Okay. If you have any questions, you can also email me. So thank you or email us. Thank you very much and have a good night. Bye-bye.